And there goes the bell. Market is closed. Well, stock market is at least. This is Daniel with VantagePoint AI, and we're going to get started with our live today. Let everybody get into the room and get set up so we can make sure things are operating the way we need them to. If you are in and you can hear me okay, do me a favor, just go over to the chat. Let me know that the chat is working for you. I'm just going to go cross-check my chats and make sure we've got everything connected the way we need it connected. Let's take a look here. See what we've got in the room so we can get things going. Yes, we are live and rolling. Thank you all for joining. Hey, Gary. Running a little, are we? Not sure what you mean, Gary. Okay. All right. Maybe it was just an update. Your I guess probably the YouTube scheduler said 18 minutes. We are right on time, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you for being here. Give me just a second here and make sure everything is working. Hey, how's it going, Ann? Nice to have you. Chad, appreciate the feedback. Glad everybody's getting into the room. The markets are closing, so I'm sure more people will be joining here as that final tally comes in and everything gets up and running. I wanted to do this session because I always get the question related to what happens when there's something like a rate announcement. What happens when there's an FOMC report? Is VantagePoint accurate when those things happen? Earnings, is VantagePoint accurate around earnings and things like that? And I'm not trying to here to prove how accurate or inaccurate something is. I've been using VantagePoint now for over a decade, so I'm just going to walk through the analysis and we'll mark the dates on the calendar and you can see for yourself and make your own decision. At the end of the day, at VantagePoint AI, our goal is to empower traders daily. And one of the ways we do that is through education like this. This is free education. It's available for everybody to consume. I'm not providing trading advice, right? I'm not telling you what to do with your money. Why I like to do this session is to answer either questions from our VantagePoint family members and users that have the software, or people that have never seen analysis on artificial intelligence software before, or maybe haven't heard of or don't know how powerful the artificial intelligence that we've patented is. And I can educate people on how to interpret it. And then I like to try to layer in some market knowledge that I've been able to acquire over my 25-year market history. So that's what this session is intended to do. If you've never joined one of these sessions before, I love heavy interaction. So get ready, jump into the chat. Happy to answer any questions as they come through the chat as we go through this. This is not a scripted event. It's a live analysis of the markets using what I use every single day, and that's VantagePoint AI. So let me switch my screen here and just give you a big picture of VantagePoint. Here is VantagePoint. If you've never seen it before, this is a software program that I do my market analysis on a daily basis. I live my day in VantagePoint as the head of VantagePoint University and vice president here at VantagePoint. But why I do this session is so that we can just walk through and do some analysis together. Right now I've got the SPY pulled up. I've got 3 months of the SPY pulled up, and the reason I started here, is primarily just to give you a sense of what VantagePoint has been forecasting. Now that the market's closed, you can even see what it forecasted for today for our VantagePoint family members, and you can do some analysis yourself. Hey, Pete. What's the AI stocks that are below $6? Pete, that's a very specific question, right? And that's not what I'm here to talk about today, but we certainly can talk about that if we have some time. So in the summary of this session, I'm going to go over the interest rates, go over some stocks that have earnings, and then at the end I usually save some time to dig into some of that stuff, and I can certainly find a scan for that and help you look for those, but there's a lot of scanners out there online that'll do that for you for free without the needs for artificial intelligence. All right, so what I'm looking at right now is a SPY, and the blue line on the screen, that is what we call a predicted moving average. And the reason we call it a predicted moving average is because it's predictive. It's got predictive information in the formula, and when it crosses the gray line and the shaded area goes from green to red, that is a predicted trend reversal. And I'm just going to walk everybody through what I'm looking at and how I'm looking at it, what it means when I see that happen. when I see that happen, the first thing I do, and if you're a VantagePoint user, you know from your AI sentiment process is then go check the neural index, which is this red and green bar. And if you've got a crossover that's pointed down and your green bar is red, indicating bearishness over the next couple of days, you know you've got a bearish prediction expected, and we're looking at our 2-day prediction with 2-day neural index. We also have our predictive differences down here at the bottom that are indicating predicted momentum over 1, 2, and 3 days. And I actually should reverse that. The light one is 1-day prediction, the pink one is 2, and the navy one is a 3-day trend momentum indicator. Now we've got a good baseline. So what we know is on this day, hey Permad, on this day we had a bearish forecast for the SPY, and then we certainly got bearishness on the SPY. And in case you don't know, the indicators I'm looking at just come out of the box. Like these are default indicators. I didn't do anything to them. This is how when you open a chart for the first time, it opens in the VantagePoint software. And what we see is that bearishness expected until we got this crossover here. Now, if I put my cursor on this day, you can see we got a crossover there on 425 saying this trend is expected to reverse. Now, we didn't have a green neural index on that day, which means we have to be cautious about that trend reversal and things may flatten out and even pull back a little bit. Well, this is Thursday. This is the Fed announcement on this week, right? Was that? Oh, excuse me. This is sorry. Let me back up a second. Today is Thursday. That's here. This is the Fed announcement yesterday, right? So this would have been Wednesday's data. When we downloaded at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, it's predicting this candle for today. This gray candle is a predicted high and predicted low that we would have expected to see today on the SPY. And it also said that this bullishness, this bearishness came to an end. This bullishness was building. Well, we got the confirmation here. It didn't go straight up. It did gap and stay higher. And then it pulled back a little bit in fear of that announcement. Who can tell me in the chat box why we saw a pullback on Tuesday and Wednesday leading up to the Fed announcement on interest rates? A candy bar. I don't have a candy bar or a way to give it to you, but a virtual candy bar for anybody that can tell me why the market pulled back pre the announcement and up to that announcement happening on Wednesday. Can anybody tell me the reason that happened? Always interested in understanding what what traders are thinking leading into announcements like that, or even when you look at a chart, knowing now that there was a Fed announcement, they decided not to change the rates on this day. Why did we see this volatility leading up to it? You can guess if you want. Okay, well then I'll tell you. I don't want to sit with too much dead air. Let's walk through it a little bit. But it is. Hey, there you go, Mojo. Appreciate that. It is fear. It's uncertainty. It's unknown. Traders don't know. This is what you call trader sentiment, not AI sentiment, but people scared of what could happen. Thank you, Burl. I appreciate that. I guess I needed to wait a little bit longer for those responses, but right. People were scared of an increase in rate. If rates go up, markets tumble, right? If rates go up and the talk of inflation not cooling, markets tumble. If rates stay the same and there's major talk of inflation not cooling, then markets tumble, right? If rates stay the same and there's talk of inflation is somewhat cooled, but we want to see more, which is basically what happened, then nothing happens to the market after that announcement. Everything that was going to happen happened leading up to it, right? So the question is, what did VantagePoint say? What did VantagePoint say, right? Let's look. VantagePoint had a green shaded area saying that trend is expected to continue higher. VantagePoint said today that we could see a high on the SPY of 504.58 and a potential predicted low. And in case anybody's not sure where I'm looking, just look, follow this pink arrow right here. Here's the predicted high that we had at 6:30 p.m. last night, the midpoint, and the predicted low. All that came through at 6:30 p.m. last night. So what VantagePoint was indicating was a predicted high of 504.58. We can try to go take a look and see what the SPY did today. The SPY high was 505.89 and a low of 499.55. VantagePoint said a low of 498.71 could be expected. So if I color in what the SPY did today with this pink line, it basically did this. Now, the question that people have when they see something like that, even after a major announcement, is how, right? Is how. Well, artificial intelligence. That's how. If I right click on this and I go into the SPY details, what I'm showing you are the markets that the artificial intelligence has figured out influence the SPY. Here's the S&P 500 in the middle, and I'm literally popping the hood on the car so you can see, and I can answer the question I'm here to answer today of how was it so accurate, right? Hey, Mike, gold influences the SPY. You know that. Japanese yen, right? That's an overseas market, a currency. The euro influences the SPY, but then there's these other things like Bloom Energy Company and Omnicom Group and BlackRock influencing our Permian Royalty Trust influencing the SPY, as well as Vanguard mortgage-backed securities. Surprise, right? There's a lot of things that influence the SPY, including emerging markets. That's the thing that you've got to be aware of when trading the stock market or trading the indices, is that there are a lot of things that could influence the stock or the market that you're trying to trade. And why I use VantagePoint is simply because it's determining all that, using intermarket analysis, which is a patented technology, by the way. And it figures out over 30 markets that influence the SPY and then figures out how they drive it up, sideways, or down. And then all of those markets we were looking at are weighted by degree of impact. Now, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time in that. If you don't have the software and you want to dig into that a little bit more, by all means, reach out to us. The phone number is right there in the chat, or you can go to VantagePointForecast.com and talk to us one-on-one. Because if there's something there that you want to understand better, it's probably better to be a one-on-one conversation. But for now, let's keep on rolling through this. So we saw the SPY do what VantagePoint indicated it would be expected to do. We also saw from the SPY standpoint more bullishness, which that shaded area was green, indicating bullishness. So we're saying, the AI is saying, we can expect some bullishness from the SPY, and it could be anywhere in this range, and it certainly ran this range and then kind of parked up here. So we got more bullishness as expected on the SPY. Now, is it perfect? No. But man, how great would it be to have that predicted high and predicted low every single day using the artificial intelligence to helping you protect your account or grow it, depending on what you're trying to do. Can it do it on other markets? Yes, here's the Qs. Same kind of situation. You can see that the Q had a very similar forecast. It crossed over earlier in the week. Still green at this point. A little bit of weakness, a little momentum pulling back, but by no means any reversal expected. The predicted high and the predicted low for the Qs. Let's see. It's got a predicted high of 426.79 and a predicted low of 418.08. And again, if you just joined, this bar is the prediction, and here are the numbers that go with it along in the legend, I guess we would call it. The actual high for the Qs looks like it was 427.81, so we're talking about 40 cents difference there, and it still blows me away. Almost 14 years now, and it blows me away when I see stuff like that. And a predicted low, we predicted a 418.08, and it went down to 420.63. So again, if I paint this candle with the actual performance, it's something like this happened today. And the market's closed, so we know that's done. Any trading that happens after that is post-market. So it's safe to say that's a pretty rock solid forecast, even with earnings that are going on, right? A lot of technology earnings happening, financial earnings happening, interest rate announcements, all that's going on this week. Yet these forecasts are that accurate, which is why I depend on this software. So we could go a little bit further. If I go back to the SPY, let's talk about what we're seeing going forward. This is valuable. And if you've got the software tonight, when you download the data, there's definitely some things you want to take a look at. One of the things I'm going to look at, and I always look at, is verified support and resistance. Okay, this is an extra indicator if you're into verified support or you're into support and resistance. This is an extra indicator to the default ones, but I like it because it gives me some very powerful ranges. You want to talk about a place to write some iron condors, maybe do some butterfly spreads if you're an options trader, or you want to take some targets, or you can expect some potential pullbacks too. This is a very, very valuable use of indicator. But what I want to show you really quickly is this. These are old support points. I'm drawing on this dotted line that stay on the screen. These stay on the screen until they're broken by price. But I'm just going to carry them forward with this pink line for you and to show you something. Carrying that forward with pink, better yet, it's not the best line. Let me just take this line and drop it on those so you can see. If I carry that forward, right, that line's at 504.63. We're back on the SPY in case you're wondering. That line is at 504.63, right? VantagePoint had a high of 505, or excuse me, the SPY had a high of 505.89. Well, what that is saying is that old support point basically stopped the progress, because there's one right above it too, basically stopped the progress of the SPY. That's an important thing to understand. It stopped the upward trend. It didn't reverse it, it stopped it, which means going into tomorrow's trading, we got to be very aware that although the trend is still expected to be up, momentum is peeled back a little bit, and there is a resistance point pressing on pretty much the dollar figure that the SPY is sitting at. So moving forward, going into Friday trading, you could expect it to, really struggle to be anything that you would expect to happen. Friday trading is hard in general, right? There's expirations coming on Friday. There's also the fact that trader sentiment now, a couple of days after the interest rates not being lowered or raised, I guess, and the fact that the trader sentiment, the fear is settled a little bit, and it's kind of turning back to greed. You go check out your other gauges on that. But when you think about that, that means this 505 number right now is going to be difficult to break. But if it is broken, then we could see a very strong bullish run coming from the SPY, because VantagePoint is indicating bullishness. So it'll be interesting to see where the market opens tomorrow and then what it does. The market open tomorrow being above 505.25, let's say, and then going up at the open means we could see it run up to this 510 or 508, 509, something like that, depending on where the open happens. So watch that open. Same thing on the Qs. If I put on let me just put on my indicators, same thing, support and resistance here on the Qs. This is also the beginning of the month, right? So we had a new month start yesterday. So we've got to be aware of that. And we have indicators here at VantagePoint that help us with that new month performance, and same situation. We've got that channel, right? We've got this channel that formed from support and resistance, but we have this old resistance point here that we've got to be aware of. I drew it a little bit lower. And we have this old support point here we've got to be aware of, right? Those 2 points are valuable points to think about. Matter of fact, those 2 points are what kind of held up price today. So we're in that same situation where price played between those old support and resistance points, and VantagePoint indicated we would see a sideways type move with some bullishness in the trend. The trend is green, but the strength is red, right? That's a sideways type move with bullishness in the trend. So those old support and resistance points are really pushing on price on the Qs. We need to be aware of the open on the Qs. The close on the Qs, I think, was 426.90, right? 426.90, which means we got to close on the Qs right near our predicted high, right? You can see basically right where it is. It's right in between those old support and resistance points. It's right in between these support and resistance points. Clearly, consolidation happened with momentum pulling off. I can go look at the volume as well on this and see if volume is stabilizing a bit. We did get more bearish volume today, but it went up. Think about that. Yesterday we had more bearish volume yesterday, but it went up. That's because fear is easing, right? Trader sentiment is getting more greedy, where it was more fearful 2 days ago. All of that comes into play. VantagePoint is using those intermarkets to say, watch the SPY and the Q open tomorrow, and if we get an open above 505 on the SPY and an open above, call it 427 on the Qs, and then the market floats up after that open, we can expect some more of that bullish trend to, be realized throughout the day. Let me take a look and see if there's anything in the chat that I'm missing. Barnyard says, is the forecast specifically or times that the market is open, or does it cover pre-market moves too? Good question. The forecast is for a 24-hour period. So it comes out at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. It's good until 6:30 the next day, which means any moves that happen pre or post market would be part of that forecast. You're not going to see the pre or post market candles, but it's a 24-hour forecast that can extend out up to 72 hours. Great question. Yes, it does do it on the crypto market. As a matter of fact, here's Bitcoin. Right? A lot of people were asking me, did VantagePoint predict what happened in Bitcoin recently and the fall from 64,000 to 57,000? Yes, it did. Look, VantagePoint indicated that we would see a cross or a trend reversal on 426. You can see it right there. I got my crosshair on that day. The Neural Index was red. The momentum indicators were indicating bearishness. So for you, Mike, this is one of the markets I was going to be talking about today. So we'll just hop to it, and you can see from that forecast to where it closed yesterday. When I say closed, I mean the end of the day at 6:30 when we update our forecasts. That's a 10% drop, right? A 10% drop in 4 days. That drawdown, if you're somebody that trades Bitcoin, it would have been great to save it, I'm sure. Now, VantagePoint also forecasted for Bitcoin a move today that had a predicted high, again, just for the newer users, of 58,843 and a predicted low of 56,484, right? That was the move today expected, and what we got right now on Bitcoin, let's take a look here. High 59,588 and a low of 56,903. So we got a candle that looks just like the candle we have here. It's just a little bit higher. Still, overall, you could expect that we were seeing a potential high up here. There is some bulls that are coming into the market, and I'll tell you why those bulls are coming into the Bitcoin market, and it's found in support and resistance. Take a look at this. This support point was set way back here. Look where that market stopped, folks. Why do you think that market literally came down? It opened on that support point, tried to get below it, could not, pushed up, it opened here, came down to that, couldn't stay below it, and then stopped. Think about that. When you see a market fall this fast and then stop, and you see a support point right there, it tells you all you need to know. There are bulls sitting at that level waiting to buy in to Bitcoin. And if bulls are sitting at that level waiting to buy into Bitcoin, what would you expect Bitcoin to do? Bitcoin to do that day if it gets below it? Push back up. So those bulls did that. Going into the market the next day, VantagePoint still indicated bearishness, 430. VantagePoint said on 430 we could expect some bearishness. Here, let me drop a line on this day for you. There you go. 430, the shaded area is red. The neural index is red. The predictive differences are all pointed down. Right out of the box, VantagePoint said you could expect it to fall. It sure fell yesterday. Holy cow. It literally opened at that same point. Now it's a 24-hour market, so it connected the candle, and you can see it just fell. Now, what happens when you get a close below a support point one day? That's where the bulls really try to rally and push this market higher, because you need multiple candle closes below a support point before you can say you have a support breakout. And I'll tell you what, if we get a support breakout on Bitcoin, now it doesn't mean it's going to fall there in a minute, but if we get a support breakout on Bitcoin and we get multiple closes below that level this week, this weekend could see Bitcoin fall even further, because the next support point is 50,000, right? The next support point is 50,000. So you got to think about that. Got to be watching this so that you can be aware that support point is a pretty strong basis for Bitcoin that dates all the way back here. The date that support point was set was February 23rd this year, but it marks a big rally in Bitcoin. Now, there's a lot of traders out there that say it's not going to happen. It could even create a new support point in here. Just understand that if it does get molded, and what I'm saying is a close, which would be yesterday, a second close below that level would confirm it, and tomorrow closing that level would be an official support breakout, and that's where we potentially could see a bigger fall. So Friday, end of day, will really tell us about Bitcoin, but what VantagePoint is saying is there's really nothing but bearishness on the horizon for it. Even if you have a couple of up days in a downtrend, VantagePoint is indicating there's still some bearishness left in this Bitcoin move. Maybe it doesn't fall and we don't get a Bitcoin rout, right? But still, bearishness to say the least. There you go. Grim says, how do I get started? Grim, we put a phone number there in chat for you. Just give us a call if that's the case. Thanks, Ed. I appreciate that. And if I'm an awesome presenter, then you are an awesome VantagePoint family member, because we love having you as part of the VantagePoint family. Thank you for that comment. Let me send some love your way, Ann. Appreciate that. All right, let's take a look at something. Let me see. Permod, can we get forecasted data for the next day for any stock 5 to 10 minutes before market close at 4 p.m. Eastern time? Permod, that's very specific. So your question is about, can you get any stock 5 to 10 minutes before the market closes at 4 p.m. Eastern time? You can get the forecast for about 1,400 individual stocks in VantagePoint at 6:30 the night before. So you've got that forecast from 6:30 p.m. Thursday night until 6:30 p.m. Friday night, or whatever night you look at it. So you get that forecast long before the market opens. I don't know what you mean by 5 to 10 minutes before the market closes. We're not going to forecast the last 5 to 10 minutes of the market if that's what you're asking. But I appreciate the involvement. Stay involved. All right, here is Chipotle, the other market I was talking about. And the reason I wanted to bring up Chipotle is because people were asking about, from an earnings standpoint, was VantagePoint able to indicate bullishness on Chipotle? And you can see the crossover here right there before earnings, at earnings. You can see the Neural Index was green. Heck, the Neural Index was green for a couple of days. VantagePoint was indicating some bullishness. If I go to our one-day forecast, by the way, some of you that like to look and sort through these forecasts, you know we have a 1-day, a 2-day, a 3-day. Some of these 1-day forecasts are really great for day trading and super short-term swing trading. Chipotle had a bullish crossover on 423, had some really short-term. Now, there's not a lot of traders that might trade through an earnings play, but in this case, you can see where VantagePoint indicated bullishness, 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 and then earnings came out and Chipotle took off. Now, VantagePoint did indicate at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time there's a good profit-taking opportunity on the short term. Going into today, VantagePoint said the 1 day was expected to be sideways with, look at this candle. This is the Chipotle candle after all that volatility. This is the predicted Chipotle candle, saying we can expect to see higher highs and higher lows in Chipotle today. Not an up day, but higher highs and higher lows. As a matter of fact, pardon me, strength was weak. Momentum was peeling off and turning bearish. So I would expect this higher high and higher low would actually produce a weaker market. That came out at 6:30 last night, and this is a few days after earnings. And we got a higher high and pretty much an equal low. If I'm looking at Chipotle right now, the predicted low on Chipotle in VantagePoint was 3,134. The actual low today for Chipotle was 3,118. It's about, what is that, 12, 15 bucks off of that. Great little forecast, because what that does is it helps traders that like to short-term swing trade Chipotle, or even do some short-term options trades, take some profits off of that. Let's say, one contract, right? That's one contract trading Chipotle, and I know not everybody can do it, but if you did, after premiums, it's probably a good $15,000 profit for you, just give or take. Again, it's hypothetical, but you can see the difference that the predictive indicators and the confidence it gives me to understand what's expected to happen here in the markets, right? So, all right, let me take that off the screen here, and let's move to Nvidia, because that was the other one that I promised I'd go over today. And the great thing about Nvidia is that it's just, right almost at the top of that move. If we look at that, I don't know if there's anybody in here that's been trading Nvidia, but we also have the ability to put the long-term crossover on here, and this is just been a lights out forecast. I've talked about it on our lives before, and you can see a bullish forecast to a bearish forecast into consolidation now for Nvidia. Let me zoom back in on this so you can see what I mean by when I say consolidation. There you go. Why do I say consolidation? Look, these lines are basically wrapping around each other. We got a kind of a bullish line here, but we've got bearish strength with momentum peeling off. We got a predicted low that is expected to be equal or just a little bit lower, and a predicted high expected to be lower. So we've got a lot of volatility in this forecast. We do not have an agreed upon artificial intelligence sentiment. What I mean by that, just a fancy way to say, is that the indicators don't agree. Well, if we put our support and resistance on this, we can see that we've got a channel building, right? Chipotle's been in a little bit of a channel here, came down, set some lower supports, then it set a higher support. Looks like it's about to set another lower support. So this channel is starting to squeeze in on price. Here's what I mean. Where I would put the Chipotle channel right now, when the charts update tonight at 6:30, I'm putting the Chipotle channel saying, hey, this is the channel that Chipotle is bouncing around within. Well, if that's the case, and you're looking to do some credit spreads and you're looking to, heck, maybe even do some iron condors, then you know that this support level and this support level would be a great place to sell some premium so that you can capitalize on, and I don't know if I said Chipotle or Nvidia, I'm sorry, I'm talking about Nvidia. You can see the chart name. Sometimes when I get presenting, I do that. But it doesn't change my assessment from price. I don't care if this is called Plato or ABC. The artificial intelligence is saying consolidation expected. I can see my resistance and my support channels, which means I can sell premium outside of this all day long. I can buy premium inside of it if I want to, so that I can, offset my costs and manage my risk and take advantage of what's expected to happen with Chipotle. This is a 0 DTE type of trade. Tomorrow is a weekly expiration on Nvidia. So there's an opportunity there to create some good income from premium using this forecast. That's one of the other things I wanted to point out. I think you can see it without me saying it, but whether you swing trade the markets, position trade the markets, day trade options, spreads, simple verticals, you can apply what I'm talking about here in overall market movements and indicator analysis, because they're predictive indicators, to all of those different strategies. All right, all of those different strategies. So let me see if I've got any questions coming through yet. And by the way, because I'm very happy to answer your questions on the fly, I'm inviting you to ask questions, get involved. I think I've answered all the questions that have come through. Do me a favor as well as I go through these next couple of charts. If there is something that you want to take a look at, a ticker symbol, a stock, or something that we forecast for, pop it into the chat as I get through some of these other forecasts. I'm happy to, if we got time, to take a look at some. So I'm just go put them in the chat right now, and then this way when we get there, we can take a look at some of that with the artificial intelligence forecasts. I wanted to look at AMT. This is American Tower because it just recently had earnings. And, from an earnings standpoint, you can see that earnings were expected here before the open. You can see what's going on from an AMT standpoint. The thing with American Tower is that when earnings came out, I think they were a beat. It was like an 11% positive surprise on earnings. Well, that was what VantagePoint indicated. Bullishness on the 29th. Bullishness from a trend, a strength, and a momentum standpoint. All of those are pointed up. And we got bullishness last night saying today was expected to see some more bullishness. AMT closed at a high today, right? AMT almost at the high, 179.64. VantagePoint said you could see it go up to, from a predicted high standpoint, 180.05. So it was 25 cents off of the high during an earnings situation that just indicated a great bullish crossover. The reason I'm pointing this out is just simply because there is a lot of opportunity in these forecasts, and here's a great example of something that had earnings recently. VantagePoint had this long bearish trend going on. Look at this. This long bearish trend was clearly on the screen. You can see that. Support was created down here very easily. A resistance point happened here. Earnings took it past that resistance point, and then VantagePoint indicated more bullishness, and we got that more bullishness. Understand one thing. There is an old support point that's going to create some resistance at 181 and some potential profit taking. So again, my prediction for American Tower is that is expected to move higher, but we'll see some profit taking around that 181 mark. So be prepared for that stall or that pullback based on what we're seeing with the artificial intelligence, all right? MasterCard, here's another one. MasterCard had a strong bearish forecast on the long-term crossover back here on 4.3. And what that means is that this is when VantagePoint indicated bearishness on MasterCard by doing a 3-day forecast. When I say 3-day forecast, you know what? Let me do something really quickly. And for those of you that have the software, just bear with me for a second because I want to explain what I mean by a 3-day forecast. This blue line, the formula for this blue line is if you take an exponential moving average or a simple moving average formula, and I'm just going to draw it on the screen. If this is today, right, I'm just going to write today, and I'm going to put I guess I'm not going to write today. T-O-D-A-Y. You can tell this is live, right? If this is today, this line right here. A simple moving average, you add up 10 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days of typical price. Typical price is the combination of high, low, close. You add those up, you divide by 10, and that plots out where you put a simple moving average. That is this gray line. VantagePoint, we do that same kind of calculation, but then what we do is we use the artificial intelligence, in this case in the 3-day predicted moving average, to add 3 days of predicted unknown typical price to anybody else in the world. The artificial intelligence knows its predicted price, and then it enhances this formula to still be a 10-day analysis, but it includes 3 days of predicted unknown price generated from the artificial intelligence. Now, VantagePoint, we know the price. The AI knows the price, but it's unknown to anybody else in the world because they're not doing intermarket analysis like this as per our patent. So naturally, if there is predictive information in the actual formula, now that can create a prediction. That number is then plotted as this blue line. What that means is, if this is the simple moving average and this is the predicted moving average, if the predicted moving average value is below the value of the simple moving average, you're expecting that simple moving average over the next 3 days to move down towards where that blue line is on this day. The only way that simple moving average can move down is if the trend goes down. I don't care if there's up days, down days, it's the overall trend, okay? That's probably too much of a detailed explanation for the people that have never seen this before, but this is education, right? I'm just here to educate you on what we're looking at and how we're using it. All right, so let's keep on going through this process. We go through this process, we can see that there is a blue line indicating bearishness. Earnings was happening. We got the earnings, and you can see from an earnings standpoint, the earnings was before the open on the 1st. Let's see what happened with it. Let me just take a look for the earnings. There we go. We had a small beat of 1.98%. But as you know and I know, beating earnings does not mean the thing skyrockets and goes higher. There was something that happened in that earnings report that caused this to fall and stay down. VantagePoint indicated a lower high and a higher low, which would be an inside bar day, which would be consolidation with weakness in the trend and momentum falling off, saying, hey, this bearish trend that was forecasted back here could still go down and might even consolidate sideways, and it's already down 7.85%. 5 contracts of that, or heck, if you just buy it outright, some people like to trade 50 shares. That's a $1,800 profit right there in that one trend alone, hypothetically, with this move. And you can see it, right? And the other point I want to make is just because stocks are in the same sector or they're competitors or they do the same thing doesn't mean they're going to go the same way. Here's Visa. Same kind of analysis on Visa. Now, they already had earnings back here, and VantagePoint indicated bullishness around that earnings time. And you can see what happened. Right? It if you took advantage of this, it opened way up here, and the trader said, "Whoa, that's way too high," and pulled it back down, and it filled that gap very quickly. Anytime you get a high range day after a gap like that, and it's a bearish candle, and it fills the gap almost completely, you can expect more bearishness, and that happens certainly. Our 3-day forecast on Visa from a long-term standpoint, let's see. Yep. That bearishness was certainly there, and we saw it happen. But earnings caused it to jump up a whole lot higher, from a Visa standpoint. Now, it had, the surprise was twice as much. It was an 8-cent surprise. It was 3.29%. So there wasn't as much bad news in that call. But still, MasterCard dropped after earnings with a positive surprise, and Visa rose after earnings with a positive surprise, then pulled back after traders took advantage of it. And that's why it's so important to understand what the artificial intelligence is saying, because you never know what one stock could do against another stock, even though they're almost exactly the same. A lot of earnings from the financial sector, that I was looking at. So we can see that. American Express. Yeah, let's look at that. Thank you. Appreciate that, Ramon. Let's pull up American Express and take a look. Here's another great example. Excuse me. From an earnings standpoint, American Express had a very positive surprise, better than both of those combined, and the market went the other way and ran up. VantagePoint forecasted bullishness, and that bullishness continued up until yesterday. VantagePoint then said, hey, you know what? After that earnings move, it's the same kind of situation. This looks very much like, was that American Tower we were looking at? Maybe it was Nvidia. Looks very much like that, where VantagePoint said last night, hey, you know what? This thing's starting to pull back. There's predicted momentum. The momentum started pulling back here, right? See that? That's momentum predicting bearishness. Strength changed 2 days ago, and then the 2-day crossover said, yep, it's time. The predicted low, lower, the predicted high, lower. Yeah, this was Ramon. This was forecasted yesterday to say, hey, you know what? This long opportunity, this profit taking, it may be time to lock it in, but of course that's up to your trading style. So I appreciate that. Apple was asked for, right? Let me look. Apple was asked for. Okay, let's go. Pop it in Apple. Let's take a look at what's going on from an Apple standpoint. And Apple, as you know, and as you can see, has just been on this crazy wild ride. VantagePoint indicated from an Apple standpoint, overall consolidation expected. Now, Apple did have earnings as well, or they're expected to have earnings. When is it? Is it today? Oh, yeah. The second after the market close. I assume that Apple earnings is coming. That call will be here in a bit if it's not already happening. VantagePoint, this is just such a volatile chart right now. The triple crossover on VantagePoint says that there's consolidation going on. Those lines are weaving. That's a predicted moving average ribbon, if you will. The long term, which is a 3-day trend forecast, says there's consolidation happening because it's green, but that line is pointed down. This is a really tough one. VantagePoint indicated a high up here around 171. First of all, I got to tell you guys, trading Apple, when you look at the chart and you see this channel right here, and I'll put on support and resistance so you can see it a little bit easier. But when you see a channel like that in support and resistance, and you see prices running up and pulling back, and running up and pulling back, and running up and pulling back, this is heavily influenced right now by trader sentiment, by news, and all of those things. And when you see something like that, trust what you're seeing, that this is something that may be worth staying away from. If not, then you go to the shortest one-day forecast you can go to, which is VantagePoint's short-term crossover, and you're looking for one-day trades, day trades, very short swings, nothing that you hold on for too long. And that's how you can use the artificial intelligence for different market conditions. Understand that this is customizable, right? We have a short-term forecast, a long-term forecast, a medium-term forecast. That's one day short-term, 2 days medium, and then 3 days long-term. That's to give you the ability, depending on the overall market conditions, to make the adjustments you need according to your trading style. It's a very versatile software program, and I think you can see that here. Hey, John, well, let me take a look. Euro, we're going to take a look. Euro USD, sure, let's pop that up there and take a look at that chart. Euro USD, it's got some bullishness going on in it. When I talk about the Euro USD, let me zoom into the side. I like to always look at the short-term crossover. And the reason I like to look at the short-term crossover is simply because in the futures markets, excuse me, in the Forex market, it just makes sense because of how fast that money can move, right? You can see that we've got bullishness working its way in, but that bullishness isn't expected to be very high. Why? Because there's resistance pushing down on it. We've got an old resistance point here that's going to keep prices right within our predicted high and predicted low. VantagePoint predicted today a high of potentially 747 and a low of 685. Let me go look. Let's see what we got on 730 and a low of 674, right? So VantagePoint forecasted to be a little bit higher than it was today, but still an up day, still some bullishness in it. The medium-term crossover, which is a 2-day trend predictor, had that bullishness expected in it. The long-term crossover, which is a 3-day forecast, had that bullishness expected in it. So you can see the bullishness is not expected to go very far, Jim. And part of that, I think I'm saying it right. I apologize if I'm not, Jamal. Part of that has to do with what's going on in the stock market and with the dollar, right? When you think about the stock market, you think about the dollar and what's going on in general. If we looked at these individually in the futures and we went to our future currencies, check this out. I'm going to bring up the US dollar and I'm going to bring up the euro. What do you notice? Just look at the right hand here. I'll put them side by side for you. What do you notice about, on the left we have the dollar and on the right we have the euro? I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and again, I'm getting a little bit into the weeds, but what do you notice about this part of the trend? The euro is slightly a bit stronger, but still in a channel. The dollar is slightly a bit weaker, but still in a channel. Well, if you combine those two to trade the euro US dollar, then you know that you're going to have the euro going up, euro US dollar pair, because the base pair is the euro, base currency is the euro, going up, and then the dollar against the dollar gaining some value. So in this case, consolidation is expected, but to the bullish side, and that's what VantagePoint was forecasting last night for the entire 24-hour Forex period for the euro from 6:30 last night to today, right? Hopefully that was helpful. Support and resistance, by the way, on got to tell you, if you're not using things like the 52-week look back, which is a 52-week higher low, if you're not using things like support and resistance, if you're not using things like our point-in-time price indicator, and you're a VantagePoint family member, those are add-ons, they're extras, right? But if you're not using those in a market that is all about supply and demand, I don't know why you wouldn't be. As a matter of fact, they're just very, very valuable indicators. All right. Hey, Matt, got a couple more before we sign off for the day. I know it's late in the day, and we've done what we came to do. Unless I missed something, unless you were expecting to see something and you haven't seen it yet, pop it into the chat. All right. Pramod, you're popping a lot of things into the chat here. You had Apple, you got AMAT. I'd love to keep on doing a personal forecast for you, my friend, but probably not going to be able to do many of those today. But let's take a look at AMAT anyway, and this will be the last one unless somebody else pops something else into the chat and see what we got going on. Here's Applied Materials. Applied Materials has a lot of consolidation going on, and here's how you read this, all right? Let me show you guys how I like to maximize VantagePoint. I like to take a look at the short-term crossover and see what the short-term is expected to be. Bearishness. Then I like to look at the medium-term crossover and see what's expected to be. Consolidation, because it's green, but that line is pointed down. And then I like to go a step further and see what the 3-day forecast. And I do this on every single asset that I compare, and I look at all of those forecasts. And the reason I like to do that is so I get a sense of the direction. The sense of the direction from these is sideways. One says up, one says sideways, and another one says down. That's sideways. So this is where the market closed yesterday. I would expect Applied Materials to trade basically sideways of that candle, maybe on the top half of our predicted high because of what's going on in the overall markets, that bullishness of the SPY and the NASDAQ. That's going to pull Applied Materials up a little bit. But the trend for Applied Materials is a consolidated sideways trend forecast with bearishness and strength and momentum peeling off. Heck, volume might even be peeling off this. Let's take a look. Yeah, see that? Increasing bearish volume, which tells me AMAT needs a lot of help to get past where that consolidated forecast has it going right now, and it's just not getting all the help that it needs. It could float a little bit higher, but until it really gets bullish momentum, and VantagePoint is not predicting bullish momentum yet. Until it gets that, it's going to struggle to get much higher. All right. Hopefully that was helpful. Verified and support and resistance. I agree with you, and it is. Verified support and resistance. Barnyard, we did the SPY. That's what we're talking about. You said E-mini S&P. We can look at it as a futures market. It's going to look exactly the same, except the fact that, you know, it's got different intermarkets, right? So if we look at the ES, there are different intermarkets than the SPY, which means different movements. Same kind of thing. We're expecting to see the ES basically right here. Top half of that bar, but within that bar. This is not a cross to the downside. Their lines are touching. As a matter of fact, that blue line is still above the long-term crossover. That you can see it's just below. And then the short-term crossover, you can see it just looks just like the SPY, where we're expecting consolidation, but some bullishness. Momentum is kind of peeling back, but not all the way back. And we were expecting a high on the ES today of 5,096. 5,096. What did the ES do today? High of 5,113. There you go. There you go. So you're talking about 14 points off of the high right there, basically. That's one of the keys to using the software, is that you get those guideposts. And don't forget, never said that these are 100% accurate. This is about giving you the information you need to make better trading decisions. Oh, I missed one. USD JPY. Yeah. All right, let's look. Last one, then I'm gone. Hey, Lauren, no worries. You don't have to be embarrassed about anything, my friend. That's why I do these sessions, and I'm glad you're here. And that tells me it was worth it. You learned something today, and that's the point of these educational live events here. So we had a bullish forecast on the US yen, Pramod. We had bullishness all the way up through that. This is a stop out kind of day if you're riding that trend. That's by the way, that is a rock solid forecast. Even if you went all the way to the close or the 6:30 forecast yesterday, look at that. That's 531 pips in one move. But what VantagePoint is saying right now about the US dollar Japanese yen is that there's a lot of bearishness. Look at this. Take a look at this. Blue line is pointed down. Let's take a, wonder what the short term says. Probably across, lower, high, higher, low. Neural is red. Predictive differences are pointed down. Let's go look at the euro. We want what? USD JPY. Yeah, look at that. Wow. Again, VantagePoint said last night at 6:30, momentum is predicted to be peeling off of that. Weakness is there. The short-term crossover. Let's see what we got. Short-term crossover. Yep. Cross to the downside, saying the one-day trend is expected to reverse. The predicted low, VantagePoint had a P low of 153. The low on the yen. The dollar yen 153. The predicted low in VantagePoint. Look, guys, I'm not kidding. This came out at 6:30 last night. Go look over here, and it says predicted low 153.13. Low. I'm just looking on a chart over here on my other screen. Low 153.05. Right? Who wouldn't love that? I know I would. And you can see how accurate that is. And on that note, we are going to end here. This has been a great session. I haven't done many sessions after the market closes, but I think one of the key, hey, Alan, that is your YouTube name. Alan's question is, how do I change my name from Barnyard Paw to Alan? Go into your YouTube profile, Alan, and you can go into your settings and you can change your name there. I'm not a YouTube pro, but that's how you would do it, my friend. And that would change it for all of your YouTube interactions. Bonus education, right? Let me just stop and say, if you're part of the VantagePoint family, thank you for being part of the VantagePoint family. It's important that you're here and you're listening and you're learning. We love having you being a user of the VantagePoint software. If you're not, and you are interested in joining the VantagePoint family, give us a call. Go to VantagePointForecast.com. Get your questions answered. We'd love to have you. We've been helping traders since 1979 and using this AI since 1991. That is 33 years of artificial intelligence experience. Not going to find another company with that experience, that expertise, and we'd love to help you. Otherwise, let me just thank you for letting me give you the view from my vantage point. I hope everybody has a great afternoon, and I will talk to you